Welcome to the Yoga of Wisdom, some bonus courses for you. I didn't get a chance to talk about the mind, and the whole central point of yoga is to control the mind, and I want to talk a little bit about it because we all have minds and we all have to deal with them, and sometimes our minds tell us things we don't like to hear and drive us crazy, like a mad roommate who's trying to control our lives. So, as spiritual beings, spirit soul, encaged in the body, as we said, we're not the body, we're also not the mind, because, as we said, you observe your mind, you observe your thoughts. So sit back, you just sit back now, you can look at your thoughts. You know, just close your eyes and watch your thoughts float by like little particles or leaves floating down a river, and you just see your thoughts. And they just go by. So you are observing your thoughts, which means that you have control of your thoughts. Then you say, I have control of my thoughts. Why do these thoughts just come to my mind? It doesn't seem like I have control. Those are thought processes and ideas that are conditioned by ways of thinking and habits of the past. But it doesn't mean we have to allow ourselves to chew on those thoughts, to digest them. They can just come, and we can deposit them. We can let them go. How do we do that? Because we're spiritual beings, we remember that as a soul, I'm in control of the mind. The mind is not in control of me. You say, wait a minute, it seems like my mind is often in control of me. That may be, but when you understand that you're a spiritual being, you just remember, I don't have to give in to the dictations of my mind. If we do, then our mind often takes us to places we don't want to go, and then we end up there and we think, oh, why did I do that? That was stupid. Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the mind is like the reins of a chariot. The driver is the intelligence, and the soul is the passenger. So the passenger is meant to tell the driver where to go, but if the passenger doesn't tell the driver where to go, then the driver will go where he wants, or the horses, which are the senses, they'll just go where they want. So, we all have minds, but often what happens is that the mind tries to bewilder you into thinking you are the mind. So many people, when you say, who are you? And they say, well, I'm not a body, but I'm my mind. That's who I am. But we're not the mind, because we're visualizing, we're seeing that we are able to see thoughts, we're able to observe thoughts, we're not the mind. But the mind will make you think that it's you, so you can't separate your identity from your mind, and then the mind is telling you, you should do this because you will be happy. And then you do it, and then you realize it was just a trick of the mind. So in spiritual life, separate yourself from your mind. You observe it, and when the mind generates thoughts and ideas which are not in alignment with your higher self and your higher interest, you just look at them and you say, I don't need that thought, and you have control. You have enough control to let it go. If you don't live that way, then you're always going to be dealing with the impulses of the mind and the dictations of the mind, and often the mind's programming is programmed in a way that's going to do things you don't want to do. You all have experience of this. I have experience of this. This is the way life is. We get ourselves in a lot of trouble sometimes by not controlling the mind. And therefore, in the Gita, Krishna says, mind is the friend. Why is it the friend? When you direct it where you want to go, then it takes you where you want to go because you're controlling. The mind is enemy. Why? Because it'll take you where it wants to go. And then your life is just miserable. So yoga is about controlling the mind. Ultimately, because the yogi is meditating, and he meditates on God and he fixes his mind on God. So we talked about self-discipline. It's a little insight into the nature of the mind. You are not the mind. You can control the mind. You don't have to do what the mind says. You don't have to take thoughts which come to you which are not favorable for what you want, and you don't have to hold on to them. You can actually tell your mind, okay, that thought, whatever, that's come. I'm not that interested in that, so we're not going to deal with that. What I'm interested in is this, and this is the direction I'm going that way. Mind is saying, I'm going that way. You're saying, I'm going this way. How does it work? In the end of the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, one should control the higher self One should control the lower self by the higher self. So there's this constant battle, duality, higher self, lower self, higher self, lower self. Lower self's pulling down to sensual and reactive. I didn't like that, I'm getting back. So the lower self is very reactive. The higher self is conscious, it's intuitive, it's directive, it's intentional, it's deliberate. It understands its nature and where it wants to go and what it needs to do, and then it directs the mind and body. So we want to live in that higher self, that higher consciousness, that spiritual consciousness. In our Yoga Wisdom workshop, we help you more do that. It's very important. But for now, just giving you some conceptual ideas to put things in place that you do not have to be under the control of the dictations of your mind. That's good news. This week, you be in charge, not your mind. Until next week, thank you. Have a good week.